Hey guys, so today we're making some cornbread dressing. Please make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let's get started with the recipe. So I'm going to start by making my cornbread, and so I am going to use a recipe that was on the back of the bag for the cornmeal, and so I'm just doing that according to the package instructions. And so that was 2 cups of cornmeal, 2 tablespoons of some granulated sugar, and I just had to add like some milk. So it was a really simple recipe, or you can use whatever cornbread recipe you prefer. But I thought this was easy and simple, and I really just needed some cornbread to crumble up into my dressing, so it wasn't a huge deal to me. But I'm going to add 1 egg, and then I'm going to mix that together. And then I am going to get a baking dish or a pan, and I'm going to grease it with some butter. And then I'm going to bake my cornbread in the oven for about 20-25 minutes, and I want to say the temperature was like 425. But again, just follow the directions of whatever cornbread you plan to make, or if you have another recipe, you can use that as well. And so I'm just going to cut up my celery and onion for the dressing. And so I'm using about 3 large ribs of celery, and I'm just going to dice those up. So I'm using my knives from Knife Saga to chop up my celery and onion. And so you can purchase your very own set of Knife Saga knives using my coupon code Teresa's Tasty Eats to get 10% off your purchase of these knives. And so I'm just chopping up one fairly large yellow onion. You can use as much or as little celery and onion as you'd like. And so after I have chopped this up, I'm going to saute this on the stove with about 1 stick of butter. And this is just to cook the vegetables down just a little bit, because you don't want them super crunchy in your dressing. And so I am just going to cook these until they are nice and soft. And so next I just grab my cornbread out of the oven. I put it in the refrigerator overnight. And so this is the next day. I feel like the cornbread is better the next day because it's a little bit more stale. And so I'm just crumbling this up in a bowl, and then I'm going to start to add my other ingredients. So I'm adding 1 bag of this stuffing mix from Pepperidge Farm. I usually use the stovetop mix, but I overlooked it at my store, so I'm using this one, and I actually like this one better because it resembled actual like cornbread more than the stovetop. But I will say the stovetop mix has more seasoning and more flavor than the Pepperidge Farm. But anyway, I'm going to add in my sauteed celery and onion, and I'm just going to mix that all together. And you don't have to use like stovetop or any other stuffing mix. You can just make double cornbread to make your dressing, and that would be fine. And so I'm just adding in 1 can of cream of celery and then 1 can of cream of chicken. You don't have to add these if you don't want to, but I feel like it adds additional flavor, and it helps your dressing to not be so dry. Okay, and so I'm adding in some chicken broth. You can make your own chicken broth, or if you want it, you can use like the broth of some turkey. It's really up to you, but I find that just buying the chicken broth from the store is a lot easier for me. And you want to kind of eyeball it, so it really will just depend on how much dressing you plan to make. That will depend on how much chicken broth you will need. And so we are going to season our dressing with some ground sage and some poultry seasoning. And then I'm also going to add in a little bit of garlic salt. You can add some garlic powder, onion powder, black pepper, whatever seasonings you want. I don't care what seasonings you use. Just make sure your food is not bland, because we don't want no bland food, y'all. Okay? And so you do want to kind of be easy with the salt, because those canned cream of chicken and celery, those have sodium in it, as well as the stuffing mix if you choose to use that. I am using lower sodium chicken broth just so I can control the amount of salt that I put in here. But again, you want to season to your preferred taste. And so I'm just going to keep mixing it up until I get a slightly loose texture from this, because again, it's going to bake in the oven, so you don't want it to be dry. And so I'm just adjusting my seasonings accordingly. And I feel like I added about 5 cups of chicken broth, give or take. But again, that will depend on the amount of dressing you plan to make. So I'm just gonna keep stirring and seeing how it tastes and adjusting my seasonings before I add my eggs. That's a very important step, to make sure it tastes good to you before you add your eggs. And so this is 2 eggs that I just added in here, and I'm going to mix this together, and then I'm going to grease a baking pan and add my dressing to it. And so this is the consistency I'm looking for. It's kind of, I mean, it's soft, but it's slightly loose. You do want it to jiggle a little bit, because it's gonna firm up in the oven, especially since you added the egg. And so I'm just putting this into a greased baking pan, and I'm gonna bake it in a 375-degree Fahrenheit oven for about an hour. But you want to check it at like the 45-minute mark. And so this is the finished product. You can serve it with some gravy, or you can serve it with some cranberry sauce. It's really up to you. And so I'm just going to put a little bit of homemade gravy on top of mine. And so that looks so good. I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. Please make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye.